Last December, the highly anticipated biopic Being the Ricardos saw a limited release in theaters. Days later, it hit Amazon's Prime Video streaming service. It was written and directed by Aaron Sorkin and dealt with the often turbulent relationship between I Love Lucie stars Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball. Nicole Kidman played Ball and Javier Bardem played Arnaz. While the film received mostly positive reviews, with most critics praising Kidman in particular for her spirited portrayal of Ball, not everyone had glowing things to say about the accuracy of the script. Lucille Ball's daughter, despite being supportive of its production, had several big problems with the film. Join Facts First as we detail what Being the Ricardos got right and what it got wrong. And stick around to see what Lucille Ball's daughter had to say about the authenticity of the movie that's been making headlines since it was first announced nearly 7 years ago. Controversial from day one. Long before its release, Being the Ricardos was already making headlines. Much of the hubbub had to do with public outcry on social media over Nicole Kidman being cast to play Ball. The criticism eventually got so intense, Kidman considered dropping out of the film before Aaron Sorkin took over as a director. Javier Bardem's selection to play Arnaz likewise drew an equal share of controversy, as a Spanish actor playing a Cuban-born star was viewed as offensive to many netizens. Even with all the scandal that rained down on the film early on in development, Being the Ricardos was able to persevere, largely because of the support of Arnaz and Ball's daughter Lucie Arnaz, who received a production credit on the film and has stood behind Sorkin's vision from the get-go. But even Lucie wasn't completely sold on all of Sorkin's directorial and writing choices. One thing in particular she took issue with was his decision to depict 3 essential defining moments in her parents' relationship as taking place during the same production week. In the film, Ball was depicted as finding out she was pregnant for the second time, right around the same period that the gossip rags of the day started running stories detailing Arnaz's infidelity. To top that off, Lucille is also shown to be accused of being communist. While all these things actually happened, they didn't happen within the same 7-day window. Another thing that Lucie Arnaz found inaccurate was the way that Sorkin's film presented Ball's intense sense of work ethic. Lucie remembers how her parents' passionate, albeit troubled relationship and its inevitable breakdown was only half the story of what was really going on when the cameras weren't rolling. Early in their careers, Ball and Arnaz were essentially contracted slaves to their respective studios. Fortunately, they managed to free themselves of the constraints of the studio system and got another shot at stardom when they actively embraced the then-new medium of TV. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already, and stick around for more about Being the Ricardos. Lucille Ball, the queen of B movies? During a memorable scene in Being the Ricardos, Lucille says something that seems to imply she's been active in showbiz since she was a child. But that's not necessarily what happened. While she had aspirations of being an actress since she was a teen, Ball didn't actually show up in Tinseltown until she was already in her 20s. In 1933, she landed her first role playing one of the Goldwyn girls in Roman Scandals. Before that, when she was 17, she had for a short spell attended the same drama school in New York City as Bette Davis, although Ball later described that experience as being rather miserable. After being told she didn't have what it took to be an actress, Ball modeled for fashion legend Hattie Carnegie, who worked with stars like Gloria Swanson, Joan Bennett, and Joan Crawford. In the process, she picked up a few valuable pointers that later came in handy once she started acting. In Being the Ricardos, Kidman portrayed Ball as someone who'd been typecast early in her career as being the queen of the B's, or low-budget films that lacked substance. To be fair, this was a situation the real Ball did actually go through early on in her acting career. Fortunately, once she managed to break away from the studios that tied her down to a series of lackluster features, she was eventually able to shine in her element once she made the jump to television. Lucie Arnaz wanted scenes removed from the film. Talking to The Hollywood Reporter, Ball's daughter revealed that after reading the script, there were several scenes she wanted to be scrapped because they, quote, never happened. Fortunately, one of these scenes was never shot because the day it was supposed to be filmed, the sprinklers went off and destroyed everything on set. Arnaz found some of the flashback scenes to be lacking. Granted, she acknowledges the director took some creative license to make it all work. One thing she praised Sorkin for was the script's dialogue and how her father's treatment of her mother was depicted. At the end of the day, Lucie said she believes the depictions of her parents were accurate composites. She also praised the casting choices, despite the fact that people of the internet seemed to have nothing nice to say about them. Talking about Kidman, Arnaz had extra praise to give her. On the 2 days she was able to visit set during filming, she got to watch Kidman play her mother in several 1930s and 40s set flashback scenes. Arnaz said Kidman was able to accurately capture what her mother was really like before she became Lucie of Lucille Ricardo fame. She went on to say the actress had poise and class while stepping into the role. How Lucille and Desi Met. When researching how much of Being the Ricardos was true, we learned that Ball had met the Cuban band leader in 1940 while filming an adaptation of the Rodgers and Hart Broadway musical Too Many Girls. The day after they met, Ball and Arnaz had already developed a strong connection with each other. Less than a year later, they eloped. In the film, their relationship is indeed depicted as starting in such a way, although it's only briefly mentioned. Later in the film, it's suggested that Ball had only agreed to star in I Love Lucie if her husband could be her co-star. That's another thing Being the Ricardos got right. Back in those days, the network brass and sponsors were pretty xenophobic, which made them leery to get behind a program that presented an interracial marriage. After being told the public would never believe she was married to Arnaz, Lucille and Desi set out on a cross-country tour performing a vaudeville-style show. The tour was so successful and the public was so accepting of the two that CBS eventually agreed to greenlight the show. Ball and Arnaz became the first interracial couple to appear on television. They also shared the first interracial kiss to ever air in America. Lucille Ball was the first pregnant woman on TV. In the movie, Lucille Ball is depicted as the first woman to appear pregnant on television. That was another thing the film got right. When Lucille became pregnant with her second child in 1952, her pregnancy was woven into the plotline of I Love Lucie. This would mark the first time in television history a woman appeared pregnant on one of the major networks. After consulting with network censors and several church leaders, the show was allowed to use the phrase expecting rather than the word pregnant, which was at the time considered to be too risque for television. Desi really did warm up the audience before each episode. I Love Lucie was shot before a live studio audience of about 300 or so people. Most attendees were tourists visiting Hollywood, hoping to get a chance to see a taping. Just as depicted in the film, Desi would really serve as an MC of sorts to warm up the crowd, and this involved introducing the I Love Lucie cast to the studio audience. Now it's time to hear from you. What did you think of the movie Being the Ricardos? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.